The night Bai Ning Bing cheated, I stayed on the balcony all night, watching the stars she liked. 6 years later, on the streets of H City, she looked at the daughter in my arms and asked, "Are you doing well?" Before I could answer, my daughter suddenly reached out and poked her designer bag. "Daddy says we can't take other people's things, oh?" Shen Yuchu walked out from the flower shop on the street corner, holding a newly wrapped bouquet of baby's breath. It was the flower she had helped me sell out through an all-night live stream when my flower field had a surplus. "Nanan, Mommy bought you little flower shell treats," she said, gently handing the item over. Her fingertips brushed past the old scar on my wrist, the one I got years ago while moving a flower stand for her. Bai Ning Bing's coldness had made any hurt feel warm. Bai Ning Bing stared at our clasped hands, finally recalling the last words I had spoken at the scene of her affair many years ago. "I understand the freedom you desire, but from now on, I will only give it to those who are worthy." The day Bai Ning Bing laid her cards on the table, it was because she had found out she was pregnant. The gestational sac on the ultrasound was 8 weeks old, and I had only just returned from a 3-month business trip. The child, naturally, was not mine. Bai Ning Bing sat on the sofa, her attitude cold and dismissive, informing me that she had been cheating for half a year. Now she was pregnant, and she wanted to keep the child and give her lover a proper status. Naturally, this meant she had to divorce me. I momentarily doubted whether I had heard wrong, but before I could ask, Bai Ning Bing anticipated what I wanted to say. She looked into my eyes and told me emotionlessly, "You heard correctly." Looking at the woman I had loved for 5 years, my heart felt like it was being pricked by countless needles. The dense, widespread pain made me feel unsteady. I had never thought my marriage would run into problems. Bai Ning Bing was very beautiful, but she had a cold personality and was slow to warm up to people. In school, she was famously the Ice Queen goddess. Many guys liked her, but only I persistently pursued her for 2 years, until she finally agreed to be mine. I truly liked her. We had been together for so many years, and even though she never fully gave herself to me, she had naturally become accustomed to my presence. We got our marriage license after graduating college, 3 years of dating and 2 years of marriage. After only 5 years together, she was tired of me. I couldn't accept this fact and was at a loss, even trying to find an excuse for her infidelity. I wanted to say I couldn't leave her, nor could I accept divorcing her. But the words caught in my throat. Looking at Bai Ning Bing's indifferent face, I suddenly stopped and asked myself honestly, if the unfaithful Bai Ning Bing agreed to return to the family and continue our life together, would I still be willing? I wouldn't be. The love I believed in had always been faithful and unwavering, and marriage even more so. Having been together for so many years, Bai Ning Bing certainly knew how much I loved her. Perhaps afraid of my possible entanglement, she made a phone call and left with her keys right after saying the word divorce, not sparing me another glance. She didn't return until the next morning. I had endured the cold wind on the balcony all night, thinking the whole time, yet I still couldn't understand why Bai Ning Bing had cheated. Bai Ning Bing came from a much better family background than mine. She was the only daughter. After graduation, she began taking over the family business, which was gradually declining. Because of this, she had practically no rest for the past 2 years. Working during the day and socializing at night had become her norm. I couldn't figure out how, being this busy, she still found the time to cheat on me. When Bai Ning Bing returned, she stood in the entryway, silently looking at me, or rather, looking at the pile of cigarette butts at my feet. Her expression hadn't changed at all. She felt none of my despair. I stared back at her across the living room. Her glamour and my utter wretchedness formed a sharp contrast. After an unknown length of time, I heard her say, "Have you thought it through? Have I thought it through?" Thinking back to our 5 years together, whenever we had an argument, no matter whose fault it was, I was always the first to compromise. She never backed down, not once. My one-sided devotion had now become pathetic. I extinguished the cigarette butts on the floor, consciously ignoring the throbbing numbness in my leg bones, and only raised my chin to ask Bai Ning Bing, Why did you cheat? We had known each other for 7 years and been together for 5. Last night, I had imagined countless reasons Bai Ning Bing might give me for divorce. Any reason other than cheating. and I would have forgiven her. But she chose to cheat. Bai Ning Bing looked away faintly, a hint of impatience in her eyes. There's no why. The relationship has simply run its course. Isn't it better if we part amicably? The relationship has run its course. Part amicably. What an easy statement. At this moment, my heart completely died. Fine, I said, struggling to pull the corners of my mouth into a smile. Let's divorce. Perhaps my swift agreement didn't align with my usual doormat image as Bai Ning Bing stared at me with a bewildered expression for a moment. She moved her lips but ultimately said nothing. Because of my consent, the divorce process was smooth. We didn't even notify both sets of parents and quickly got our divorce certificate, just as hastily as we got our marriage license. As the offending party, Bai Ning Bing gave me a large compensation sum. She even gave me the house we had bought together. She packed her things in just half a day after 2 years of marriage. I watched her carry her luggage, get into the car and drive away, never once looking back. 5 years. I thought even raising a dog would lead to some emotional attachment. Bai Ning Bing, this woman, was truly ruthless when she set her mind to it. It was precisely because of this that I suddenly wanted to see her lover, the man who was apparently so much better than me that he caused Bai Ning Bing to do the one thing she most despised. However, I managed to resist the urge to look. Since we were divorced, respecting our former relationship meant not disturbing each other. The day after the divorce, I received a WeChat message from Bai Ning Bing's cousin. She asked me who the man was that came home with her cousin. This sentence was followed by 3 laughing with hands over mouth emojis. I stared at the line of text for a long time, finally feeling a sense of relief. I replied, "You should ask your cousin that question," and then deleted Bai Jiaqi's WeChat. Bai Jiaqi had never liked me. She sent that message deliberately to make me uncomfortable, and I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. People came and went on the long street. Standing in the crowd, I felt like I couldn't find my way home. At this moment, I realized it was perhaps time to leave this city. The next day, I submitted my resignation to the company. I came to this city for Bai Ning Bing, and now I was leaving because of her. Thinking back, in the short period of my youth, I had almost entirely revolved around Bai Ning Bing. No wonder she was tired of me. After quitting my job, I rested at home for a month before selling the house and preparing to head towards my new destination. 2 hours before I was due to board the plane, Bai Ning Bing suddenly called. We had cut off all contact in the month since the divorce. There had been no communication, let alone Bai Ning Bing proactively reaching out. I hesitated for a moment but answered the phone anyway. Bai Ning Bing's flat voice came through the receiver. "You sold the house?" I froze and instinctively asked back, "Can't I sell it?" There was a moment of silence on the other end. After a long while, Bai Ning Bing coldly said, "Suit yourself," and hung up the phone. If this were in the past, and Bai Ning Bing spoke to me in that tone, I would have already prepared her favorite gifts and stood downstairs at her company, anxiously begging for her forgiveness. Times have changed. Today is different from the past. Did Bai Ning Bing still think I would tolerate her temper as I used to? How ridiculous. I stared at my phone emotionlessly for a while. Before leaving, I went to a nearby business office and canceled my number. I did not want any contact with Bai Ning Bing in the future. My grandmother raised me, and my relationship with my parents was not close. I didn't tell them about the divorce when I returned. On the 12th day after my return, the next-door neighbor came to my grandmother with a phone. Their gaze towards me was complex. I instantly understood that it was a call from my parents. When my grandmother handed me the phone, my mother was angrily yelling on the other end. I emotionlessly hung up. Less than a minute later, the phone rang again. I barely managed a sound before the shouting on the other side became even louder than before. I hung up again. After 4 or 5 repetitions, my mother finally calmed down. She stopped yelling, but asked me to give her my new phone number. She said I hadn't told her about such a major event as the divorce, asking what I was thinking. I pursed my lips and told her blandly, thinking about myself. It's been nearly 2 months since the divorce, and this time you remembered me sooner than the last. The other side choked and fell silent. When I was young, my family was very poor. My parents decided to venture out after I was born and left me with my grandmother. A few years later, they made some money, But they also had a new child with them, a younger brother. The reason for the brother was because I wasn't close to them. I knew my parents favored him. Sure enough, my parents looked at me with incredibly complex eyes. I tried to argue that I didn't do it, and I still remember the helplessness of that moment. My mother waved her hand and said dismissively, "Fine, fine, I know you didn't do it." Then, turning around, she said to my father where she thought I couldn't hear, "How did your mother raise this child to be like this?" My father didn't speak, clearly defaulting to believing I was the one who did it. Later, they bought more toys, but those toys were locked in a storage room. Only the three of them had the key. I am somewhat allergic to seafood. My grandmother remembered this most clearly, and seafood never appeared on the family dinner table. Before I was taken to live with my parents, my grandmother even instructed my mother not to let me eat seafood. My mother nodded and agreed. However, on the third day of my arrival at their house, I was rushed to the hospital because of a bowl of seafood congee. As I was struggling to breathe in the emergency room, I heard my parents arguing intensely right outside the door. My mother said, "How was I supposed to know he was allergic to seafood?" My father's voice was helpless. "Didn't Mom tell you when she came?" "She told me so many things, how am I supposed to remember?" My mother's voice was sharp. "Besides, he's that old. Doesn't he know what he can and can't eat? I think he was just greedy. If his brother ate it, and he didn't, he'd feel like he was missing out." The reason they were so angry now was likely because they thought that since I divorced by Ning Bing, they could no longer get any substantial benefits from me to help my brother. After all, Bai Ning Bing was richer than I was. Why else would they suddenly remember to call me? Perhaps realizing the urgency, my parents rushed back that very evening. Trailing behind them was my college-aged brother. Our eyes met, and the schadenfreude in his eyes hadn't even had time to disappear. My mother ignored my grandmother's joyful greeting, instead shooting me a cold glare. Before even sitting down, she angrily scolded, "Fang Yuan, your wings have grown hard, haven't they? You didn't even consult us about such a huge matter as divorce." Grandmother was shocked by the news. She looked at my mother, then at me, and though her lips moved, she ultimately said nothing. I knew my feelings were shallow, so my heart remained calm. I just looked at the half-burned cigarette between my fingers and remained silent. My mother hated seeing me like this the most. Her voice suddenly became shrill. "Fang Yuan, is this how you treat your own mother? Utterly without manners? No wonder your marriage failed." Seeing that her words were getting out of hand, my father suddenly reached out and tugged her arm, reprimanding her. His expression suggested displeasure. "You've lost your mind in anger. How can you talk to the child like that?" My mother, realizing her words were excessive, was too proud to apologize to me. She merely snorted and turned her face away. My father looked at me with some difficulty, his expression, suggesting he wanted me to apologize to my mother. I was the one who was scolded, and I was expected to apologize? Why? Do children owe their parents by birth? Grandmother brought over some tea and quietly said to my parents, "Whatever it is, you should talk to the child nicely." I dropped the cigarette butt in my hand on the ground, ground it out with my foot, and then turned to look at my father. I asked him, "How did you know I got divorced?" My father smiled awkwardly. "Ning Bing called your mom and me, saying she hadn't been able to reach you and was worried." I pursed my lips, suddenly finding it funny. He was the one who cheated, he was the one who got another man's child. He was the one who first proposed divorce. And he was the one who said the relationship had run its course and we should part amicably. I didn't cling on. Since we divorced and had no ties, I was determined to cut him out completely. So why was he contacting me again? My mother was still chattering about how wonderful Bai Ning Bing was. Every good thing she said about Bai Ning Bing was followed by an implication that I had a bad personality, and it was a miracle Bai Ning Bing tolerated me. If I were thinking clearly, I wouldn't be here listening to her rambling, but perhaps a deep, unattainable hope still lingered in my heart. No matter how viciously my mother spoke, my divorce from Bai Ning Bing was final, with no possibility of turning back. After enduring another night of cold wind without a word of comfort, I suddenly woke up. Life is still long. Why waste it on someone who doesn't love me? Finally, my mother remained unconvinced. She said Ning Bing's family business was flourishing in the market and had infinite potential for the future. I absolutely shouldn't have divorced him so easily. Even if we divorced, I should have gotten at least 5 to 10% of Ning Bing's company shares. I pressed my temples, which were starting to ache, and interrupted their discussion. Is that enough? My parents both turned to look at me, and even my brother, who had been enjoying the show, looked surprised. For so many years, I had a good temper and had never talked back or contradicted my parents. It was precisely because of this that my mother could criticize me so unrestrainedly. But today, I suddenly didn't want to tolerate it anymore. I didn't bother beating around the bush and said blandly, "If that's enough, then leave, before you miss the tickets home." My mother's eyes widened. After a long pause, she pointed at my nose and began to curse again. She called me an ungrateful wretch, whom she couldn't raise. I glanced at her, stood up, and walked out. I found a hotel in the town and checked in. Just as I settled down, Ning Bing called. Somehow, he had gotten my new number. I looked at the 11 familiar digits, hesitated for a moment, but didn't answer. Ning Bing was persistent, and soon a second and a third call came in. His patience with me after the divorce was noticeably better than before. I answered on the 7th call. There was no sound on the other end, only Ning Bing's steady breathing. I didn't speak either, looking down at the constantly changing call duration. When it reached 2 minutes, I broke the silence. The relationship has run its course, and we parted amicably. Those were your words. I don't have a habit of lingering with an ex-spouse. Ning Bing, whatever it is, don't look for me again. Silence still remained on the other end. I didn't wait for Ning Bing's answer. After hanging up, I immediately put him on the blacklist. Ning Bing wasn't particularly good to me when we were married, but now that we were divorced, he contacted me much more often. What, was he not used to suddenly losing his doormat? It was possible. After all, I had looked after his every need for 5 years. I turned off my phone and stayed at the town's hotel for 7 days. On the evening of the 7th day, my grandmother, leaning on her worn-out walking stick, slowly and laboriously found me. This octogenarian walked with small, shuffling steps, searching for me from the village to the town. I could even imagine the look on her face as she asked for directions along the way. My grandmother's gray hair was illuminated by the setting sun, and the few remaining teeth in her mouth were smiling at me. She said, "Fang Yuan, they've gone. Grandma's taking you home." I was suddenly reminded of my youth, when no matter how late I finished evening self-study, she would always wait for me at the village entrance to walk home together. I thought I had gone through so much that I was past the age of weeping, but at that moment, looking at my grandmother's hunched figure, which made her nearly 2 heads shorter than me, I couldn't help but feel my eyes well up. After returning with my grandmother, I turned my phone back on. As expected, my parents had sent me many long essays on WeChat, all of which scolded my lack of sense. I didn't bother opening them. Ning Bing also sent a message from an unfamiliar number. The general meaning was for me to live well. He only wanted to confirm my safety this time, as we were once husband and wife. He would not look for me again, and we should each live our own lives in peace. Each live our own lives in peace. To be honest, I certainly didn't wish peace for someone who had betrayed our marriage. I couldn't bring myself to bless him with peace. However, the 7-figure balance in my bank account gave me confidence. I wanted to see the vast country, the mountains and lakes, and the sunrises and sunsets. In the 2nd year of traveling with my grandmother, I met an acquaintance from high school in a foreign land named Shen Yuchu. I didn't have much interaction with her before, only knowing that she was someone who traveled alone with a camera and simple luggage. Our unexpected meeting, coupled with the fact that our next destination was the same, led us to travel together. Shen Yuchu didn't talk much. She respected the elderly, knew how to read the room, and was good at making my grandmother happy. She liked her very much. One night, as my grandmother and I sat together in lounge chairs, looking at the stars through the skylight, my grandmother suddenly said, "That Yuchu girl is quite nice." I instantly understood what she meant. I chuckled dryly. "She is quite nice." When it came to romance, the minds of the elderly were always especially sensitive. However, while Shen Yuchu and I shared common interests, there was a chasm we couldn't easily cross. My admiration for her didn't mean I liked her. Furthermore, I was divorced. I could never be worthy of her. Because of my grandmother's age, she always needed a couple of days to recover after arriving at a new place. I worried this would delay Shen Yuchu's itinerary and kept suggesting she should leave first. Shen Yuchu didn't refuse my suggestion, only smiling and saying, "It's not too late to part ways at the next stop. I also want to stay here a few more days." The misty, rainy Jiangnan water town was as beautiful as a painting. Surrounded by such beauty, my mood brightened considerably, and I couldn't help but look at Shen Yuchu a few more times. Unlike Ning Bing's flashy looks, Shen Yuchu was naturally endearing. With soft facial features, she carried an air of scholarly refinement that made her seem very approachable at first glance. Noticing my gaze, Shen Yuchu smiled gently. The rolling hills in the distance were reflected in her slightly curved dark eyes, giving a sense of openness. The ancient town's lanes were winding, and the continuous light rain stirred up layers of thin, white mist. The scene was like a fairyland. I told my grandmother I wanted to go for a walk. My grandmother, being old, didn't want to walk much. She sat with the elderly women of similar age in the town under the eaves. They spoke to each other in heavily accented local Mandarin, not knowing if the other understood, and then burst into laughter over their own jokes. After that, they would all laugh together. I watched for a while from nearby. Footsteps approached from behind. I turned and saw her standing beside me in the misty rain. Her demeanor was gentle, like warm water, a sight I had never seen before. Shen Yuchu asked if I wanted to go for a walk together. It was a perfect suggestion. I took the umbrella from her hand, and we strolled together through the ancient town of green bricks and black tiles. Shen Yuchu wasn't very talkative. I initiated most of the conversation topics. She listened very carefully, and her answers to my questions were always polite, as if she were trying hard to find a standard answer. It was quite interesting. Looking at her gentle profile, I felt a faint, subtle regret. It was a pity. I was already past the age of easily falling in love. Shen Yuchu and I parted ways at the next stop. After that, I crossed 3 more high mountains and 2 lakes, and I never saw her again. My grandmother and I left in early winter and returned in late summer. My grandmother's face was filled with more smiles. She went out with her cane to chat, telling everyone she met about the vast mountains and rivers she had seen. There were several elderly people in the village who were the same age as my grandmother, and although my grandmother's vocabulary was limited, they all showed expressions of longing and envy. Some people didn't like to see my grandmother happy, and during casual talks, they would often hint at my marriage or work situation. The smile stayed on my grandmother's face for a long time, only to be followed by a sigh. "We can't control what young people do," she said, finally stopping the conversation. The older woman who started the topic gave a knowing look, and the subject was finally dropped. After resting at home for a few days, I started making new plans for my life. I studied civil engineering in college, and while I wasn't great at my own coursework, I often audited agricultural classes. The small-town countryside had an abundance of land. I leased a few acres, planning to plant flowers. In recent years, many people pay attention to festivals, so the market for flowers is quite brisk. Besides, I also wanted to settle down and cultivate my mind. There seemed to be no better way than growing grass and nurturing flowers. In the following days, Bai Jiaqi used her friend's WeChat to contact me a few more times. All her messages were subtle attempts to gauge whether I had truly forgotten her cousin. I had loved him so deeply that my decisive departure was merely seen by them as a strategy of retreating to advance. I had wasted a lot of time and emotional energy on Ning Bing, and the cost of leaving was the sacrifice of so many years of youth. The price was indeed quite high. During that time, the acres I leased needed plastic greenhouses built. I didn't have the time or the desire to deal with her, and eventually, the issue faded away. I wasn't so clueless. At the very least, I knew when to cut my losses. Just as the plastic greenhouse was about to be completed, an old acquaintance came to my house. She was sitting in the yard, talking to my grandmother, her back lean and slender. The setting sun cast a gentle and handsome light on her profile. As if sensing something, Shen Yuchu looked over at me. She gave me a gentle smile. She said she was passing through and thought she would stop by to see me. The heart that had been still for a long time suddenly skipped a beat, then quickly returned to its normal rhythm. Shen Yuchu, who only claimed to be stopping by, stayed and showed no intention of leaving. She began joining me every morning, bringing her camera along. She walked behind me, taking pictures as we went. Sometimes I would walk far ahead, and she would still be paused in her spot, so I would stop and wait for her. I knew she liked the scenery here. She liked it so much that she was willing to stop. When we reached the flower field, she would bring up the photos she had taken for us to admire together. It was only when I came back to reality that I realized, without knowing when, we had become this close. Our eyes met, and we both hurriedly looked away. I saw a hint of shyness appear on Shen Yuchu's cheek. I finally realized, belatedly, that something wasn't right. So I invited Shen Yuchu for a small drink in the wooden house in the flower field. As the alcohol took effect, I laid bare all the entanglements I had with Ning Bing over the years. Shen Yuchu is a smart person. How could she not understand my implication? After a moment, she sighed softly, in the dim light. Her eyes looked intensely at me. You don't have to say it, I know all of it. But she was unwilling to say how she knew. After the fervent love for Ning Bing had faded, I didn't know if I still had the capacity to love anyone else, but I knew it shouldn't be now. Perhaps I was overthinking it. Shen Yuchu might not have any such intentions. Habit is a terrifying thing. Yet I had to admit that after just a few months of spending time together, I had grown used to Shen Yuchu's company. Suddenly, the new year arrived. On the day of the beginning of spring, the roses in the plastic greenhouse bloomed. I picked one and held it in my palm, examining it closely. Shen Yuchu, who had just been taking photos of the roses, had quietly moved closer. She leaned slightly toward me to admire the rose in my hand. She was so close that the fragrance of soap permeated my senses. It was refreshing and pleasant. Compared to her, even the vibrant rose seemed to lose its color. I don't know what came over me at that moment, but I suddenly held the rose out to her. Yuchu, do you like roses? Shen Yuchu froze. She looked down at the rose I was holding up, then looked up and stared intently at me. In her dark, almond-shaped eyes, boundless affection seemed to shimmer. After a long pause, she took the rose from my hand, lowered her head, and gently inhaled its scent. Then she slowly smiled. I like it. What is she like? The rose? Or could it be? I stared at her blankly, completely forgetting to ask. I only knew that at this moment, the vast sea of flowers was not even half as beautiful as her gentle eyes. I wasn't incapable of loving. After confirming my own feelings, I formally confessed to Shen Yuchu on the day of the end of March. Shen Yuchu showed no surprise. She even accepted my confession without any hesitation. Our way of interacting didn't change because of the new relationship. After more than half a year together, Shen Yuchu's gentle nature was the same as when we first met. Grandmother was even more delighted, showing her more affection than she did me. After March, my parents called when they learned I was growing flowers. My mother's voice was sharp and grating. She insinuated that I was worthless and deserved to rot in the mud for the rest of my life. I didn't understand why my birth parents held such malice toward me, so I decided to no longer take them to heart. I said calmly, "If you despise me so much, then pretend you never gave birth to me from now on." My mother's sharp yelling abruptly stopped. My father quickly took the phone, scolding me for being immature at my age. I chuckled. "Well, you still have an obedient and sensible son. I guess having me around really was too much." My father sighed, told me to calm down, and hung up. I took a deep breath of the flower-scented air. Turning around, I saw Shen Yuchu rushing over, carrying a small, potted bouquet of baby's breath. She handed the baby's breath to me, rubbed her nose, and asked a bit awkwardly if I liked it. Shen Yuchu was observant. Even though my emotions were calm, she sensitively noticed my distress. I lowered my eyes to look at the flowers, suddenly recalling that the language of baby's breath is silent guardianship and love. I leaned in and hugged Shen Yuchu. I felt her body stiffen slightly, then the arm she had resting on my waist tightened. We were so close that I could hear her heartbeat, one beat faster than the last. Suddenly, I became greedy for this warmth. In our 5th year together, Shen Yuchu and I had a 3-year-old daughter. She would start kindergarten in September. Due to household registration issues, we had to return to H City. It had been 6 years since I divorced by Ning Bing. I hadn't heard any news of her or returned to H City in that time. However, business was pressing. Upon arriving in H City, Shen Yuchu and I immediately rushed to the local police station. While she was inside handling our daughter's registration, which would take a long time, I took our daughter's hand and strolled down the street on the other side. Perhaps because we were in an unfamiliar place, my daughter looked around curiously and refused to walk, holding out her arms to be carried. Shen Yuchu had spoiled her a little, so she'd cry if she didn't get her way. I carried her around, and as we turned a street corner, I suddenly saw a familiar figure. After 6 years of separation, I almost instinctively wanted to turn and leave. The next second, Ning Bing looked up. Her gaze swept past me, then snapped back. We looked at each other from a distance. I hugged my daughter tighter and looked away, expressionless. The most familiar stranger, that was all we were now, out of the corner of my eye. I saw Ning Bing pause in astonishment for a moment, then suddenly walk quickly toward me. Unwilling to have any involvement with her, I turned to leave. Ning Bing called my name from behind. "Fang Yuan!" I frowned but stopped walking. Ning Bing strode up to me. She looked at me, then stared blankly at the daughter in my arms. After a long pause, she asked in an incredulous tone, "Your child?" Under her intense, almost oppressive gaze, I nodded. I even smiled, slowly telling her, "Yes, she's my daughter. She just turned 3. Ning Bing's composed expression finally shattered, cracking inch by inch. The way she looked at me again made it seem like I was the one who had betrayed her. I knew Ning Bing too well. Even after 6 years apart, I could guess what that expression meant. She was the one who betrayed the marriage. Did she still believe I loved her so profoundly that I would wait for her return, even after she cheated and divorced me? Perhaps sensing danger, my daughter's thin arms tightened around my neck. She buried her small head in my shoulder and muffled a "Daddy." I gently patted her back to comfort her, then looked at Ning Bing. 6 years had passed, but she hadn't changed much. She was still tall and stunningly beautiful. The only difference was that she seemed much more mature. Unlike the Ice Queen goddess of the past, the 6-year-older Ning Bing possessed an intellectual beauty that radiated outward, showcasing the wisdom and grace of time. Meeting again, we didn't exchange any polite "long time no see," nor was there any palpable hostility. My feelings of affection and resentment toward her had entirely vanished during those 6 years. Ning Bing looked at me, her gaze returning to my daughter. Her expression was complex, her eyes half-lowered and her mood indecipherable. Separated for so many years, we had each formed new families, and there was no longer any spark of feeling left for the former lover. After a moment of silence, Ning Bing took a small step forward. Her words were interrupted by another gentle voice, "Aruan." Hearing that voice, my daughter instantly brightened. She lifted her small head and loudly called, "Mommy," to Shen Yuchu, who had appeared at the street corner. She even reached her little arms out toward her. Shen Yuchu's eyes rested on Ning Bing for a moment. Then she walked toward me. As she passed Ning Bing, she nodded briefly at her. She reached out and took our daughter from my arms. Our daughter nestled obediently on her shoulder, sweetly calling out "Mommy" in her baby voice. Shen Yuchu stroked her little head, her smile utterly doting. I caught Ning Bing's shocked and bewildered expression out of the corner of my eye. I guess she must have recognized Shen Yuchu. For some reason, a feeling I could only call satisfaction inexplicably welled up in my heart. I took Shen Yuchu's hand and said to Ning Bing, "This is my wife." Ning Bing's gaze dropped to our hands, which were tightly clasped, where an impenetrable gloom seemed to melt into her eyes. Shen Yuchu soothed our daughter for a bit, then looked at me. She gently squeezed our clasped hands and asked softly, "Shall we go?" I nodded. I naturally took our daughter from her shoulder and held her in my arms. We turned and had only walked a few steps when we ran into another acquaintance, Ji Boda. I still remember how he excelled in school and was Ning Bing's biggest rival during her student years. The thing that struck me most was that their rivalry caused them to dislike each other so much that they never interacted beyond jointly participating in competitions. Even when they ran into each other on campus, they would scornfully look away. Ji-Boda was clearly stunned when he saw me. He then awkwardly pursed his lips and avoided my gaze, looking instead at his right side. He was holding the hand of a boy, around 6 or 7 years old. When the boy saw Ning Bing, he pulled his hand free, shouted "Mommy," and ran toward her. So that's how it is. At that moment, everything became clear. I turned and glanced at Ning Bing. Ning Bing bit her lip and turned her head, not daring to look at me. Shen Yuchu tightened her grip on my hand. I turned back as if nothing had happened, giving her a reassuring smile, and continued walking with her. As we passed Ji-Boda, I heard his voice, quote, "Fang Yuan, congratulations." I paused, then laughed coldly. "I should thank you for making it happen. What right did the mistress who intervened in my marriage have to pretend to be friendly in front of me since returning from the trip?" Our family of three's life resumed its peaceful routine, filled with sweetness. Shen Yuchu and I tacitly avoided mentioning Ning Bing. One day, about half a month later, as I was pruning flowers, I looked up and saw Shen Yuchu holding our daughter, her face clouded as she looked out the window. Shen Yuchu was always gentle. After so many years together, this was the first time I had seen that expression on her face. Instinctively, I followed her gaze. A familiar figure was standing outside the window. Ning Bing was in the yard talking to grandmother, but her eyes kept drifting toward our window. No wonder Shen Yuchu's expression was so grim. What was Ning Bing doing here? Shen Yuchu comforted our daughter, then glanced at me, leaving the instruction, "Don't go out." With that, she pushed the door open and walked out herself. I watched through the window as she spoke with Ning Bing. The two women, similar in age, exuded different temperaments, each with her own unique charm. I looked past Ning Bing toward Shen Yuchu, and once my gaze landed on her, I couldn't look away. In my memory, Shen Yuchu was always gentle. This assertive, hostile Shen Yuchu, with her whole body radiating defiance, was a sight I had never seen before. I watched her for a while longer, unaware that the corner of my mouth was turning up. When Shen Yuchu pushed the door open and walked in, the smile was still on my face. She was clearly taken aback. Her bright, dark eyes narrowed slightly, and she asked me with an ambiguous tone, "So happy?" Realizing she had misunderstood, I explained frankly, "I've never seen you show hostility towards anyone." Shen Yuchu's expression softened upon hearing this. She picked up our daughter, who was playing with blocks, and nestled her onto my shoulder. I heard her voice, laced with helplessness, next to my ear. "Go outside and make things clear with her." She paused, then added in a soft voice, "Don't leave me." I stood under the wisteria trellis in the courtyard, facing Ning Bing. In the short half-month since we last met, she looked noticeably thinner. Perhaps she had rushed here, as her clothes were wrinkled in several places. This wasn't the impeccably clean and neat Ning Bing I remembered. She just stood there, looking at me quietly, not speaking. The air was silent and oppressive. Grandmother perhaps couldn't bear the atmosphere. She stood up, leaning on her cane, saying she found the courtyard a bit stuffy and wanted to go for a walk. After grandmother was out of earshot, I was the first to break the silence. Ning Bing, even though so many years have passed, I have always had a question for you. A flicker of hope seemed to ignite in her eyes. I guess she might have thought I was going to ask if she had ever loved me. How shallow. Ning Bing cleared her throat, her voice still hoarse. "Tell me." I looked at the slender figure in the window, curved my lips into a cold smile, stepped closer, and asked in a low voice, "Do you think stolen kisses taste sweeter?" Ning Bing froze, her expression shattering inch by inch. Even her exquisite makeup couldn't hide her shock and distress in her face. A feeling of satisfaction rushed through my heart. I saw the knuckles of Ning Bing's hand gripping the trellis turn pale. "I'm sorry," she said, giving an apology that was 6 years too late. Then she added, I thought. The rest of the words caught in her throat. Thought what? Did she think I loved her so deeply that even after the divorce, I would still silently watch over her from a distance she didn't know? But Ning Bing, no one is born owing anyone else in this world. You're already past 30. Why don't you understand? I looked at her with cold eyes and remained silent. We part ways and find happiness separately. No matter what her reason was, morally or logically, she shouldn't have come looking for me. Yet 6 years after the divorce, she came anyway. Bai Ning Bing met my gaze, her eyes bloodshot. Finally, she left a single sentence. Fang Yuan, you are mostly unhappy, but I truly regret divorcing you. I paused, then slowly smiled. So what? No one knew better than I that Bai Ning Bing didn't truly regret it. She merely saw that I was doing well after leaving her. Even happier than when I was with her, and she felt uncomfortable about it. After 6 years apart, the fact that Bai Ning Bing could still say such a thing to me relied on the unique partiality I once held for her. I once loved her with all my heart. She couldn't believe I could so easily let go of her. And when she finally realized her loss, it was inevitable that she couldn't accept it. Perhaps these years of farming and flower cultivation had tempered my temper, as I was ultimately more open-minded than she was. I had no intention of talking more with her. I simply urged her to leave soon. She had a new family. Deliberately coming here to find me was disloyal to her new family. She betrayed me back then. Was she going to betray her family again now? Bai Ning Bing left my house, but didn't leave the small town. She found a hotel there and stayed. Every morning, she would stand at a distance, looking in my direction. Shen Yuchu's expression grew darker day by day, but she tried her best not to show her emotions in front of me and our daughter. Finally, one night, Shen Yuchu quietly dressed and slipped out while I was asleep. After she left, I got up and secretly followed her. Sure enough, Shen Yuchu had arranged to meet Bai Ning Bing. I crouched under the window, eavesdropping on their conversation. After a silence, Bai Ning Bing was the first to speak. Before coming here, Jiboda told me everything. My reunion with him is entirely because of you. I was startled, but quickly calmed down. So that's what made Bai Ning Bing break down? Shen Yuchu didn't speak. I heard Bai Ning Bing gnash her teeth. What a cunning method! There was another silence. I quietly stood up and peered into the room through a crack in the window. So what? Shen Yuchu stood in the shadow cast by the pale light. From my angle, I couldn't see her expression, but I heard her emotionless voice. Weren't you the one who acted dishonorably first? Bai Ning Bing's body stiffened suddenly. You knew? Of course I knew. Shen Yuchu sneered, her voice full of sarcasm. I started liking Fang Yuan when I was 18. I liked him even more at 28. Now, at 32, my affection for him has only grown. But you are different. You have restless genes in your bones. If it hadn't been Jiboda back then, there would have been Zhaoboda or Liboda later. Fang Yuan's life with you was misery. He saved me back then, so I naturally had to save him. And what if Fang Yuan finds out? Bai Ning Bing's voice seemed to hold a sliver of hope. If Fang Yuan finds out you manipulated his marriage, can you guarantee he won't resent it? For a moment, Shen Yuchu stepped out of the dark shadow. Her expression was indistinct. I heard her say, I was saving him. How can that be called manipulation? The next day, when I saw Bai Ning Bing again, I walked toward her. Before she could speak, I got straight to the point. I heard everything you two said last night. A look of hope flashed in Bai Ning Bing's eyes. She pursed her lips, her voice somewhat dry. Fang Yuan, Jiboda, and I had nothing before. I interrupted her, my attitude firm. Our marriage was unhappy to begin with. You never cared for me. Your parents and your cousin all thought I was beneath you. They never accepted me, and you never said a word in my defense. It's been 6 years since the divorce. We each have new families. You suddenly travel all this way to find me. Are you being fair to? I pointed at the wisteria trellis and smiled coldly. Bai Ning Bing. We were husband and wife once. Let's leave it at that. The last spark of light in Bai Ning Bing's eyes completely died out. The relationship has run its course, and we part amicably. I returned Bai Ning Bing's own words to her exactly as they were spoken. In the distance, Shen Yuchu was holding our daughter and waving at me in the morning sun. I lifted the corner of my mouth, walked past Bai Ning Bing, and strode toward her. With our daughter in the middle, Shen Yuchu and I exchanged a look and smiled in unison. We held our daughter's small hands, one on each side, and slowly walked toward the flower field. The sun was still bright, and all our days were still beautiful. The misfortune of one marriage is not an ending, but the beginning of the next stop on the path to happiness. As a person, you will always encounter various difficulties and obstacles. You only need to uphold your original heart, and someone will be willing to cross layers of mist to rush to you. G. Boda. The glaring sunlight shone through the window onto my eyes. I groggily opened them. The sudden cold made my head throb violently. The phone by the pillow was still annoyingly ringing, the name Boda flashing repeatedly on the screen. A wave of irritation surged through me. I threw the phone, and it hit the wall, shattering into pieces. The world returned to silence. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Though my head was splitting, the words Fang Yuan said yesterday kept echoing in my ears. Each sentence, an innocent way of distancing himself from me. They were words I had once spoken. But hearing him return them to me now, I realized they were truly heartbreaking. 6 years after the divorce, we each have families. We shouldn't disturb each other, yet I couldn't control myself. I remembered all the good he had done for me. He was so good to me then that I was almost dependent on him. The change in our relationship happened because of his first business trip. And right at that crucial moment, I met G. Boda, a faint moonbeam from my youth. It's hard to imagine that after so many years, the moonbeam from my young adulthood shone directly upon me. It was hard for me to refuse. Even though I knew what I was doing was unfair to Fang Yuan, I was the one who ultimately betrayed the marriage. My mother was right. I had tired of a comfortable life back then. After the divorce, I did briefly entertain the thought of going to find him, but I never acted on it. No one knew better than I did that Fang Yuan liked me very, very much. The one who is loved is always reckless. So what if I was the one who made the mistake? I was still reckless. That is, until 6 years later, when I saw Fang Yuan again, and saw the person standing next to him, Shen Yuchu. Or perhaps I should call her Shen Yuchu. No one knows about my shameful intentions back then. And no one would know that I only intentionally and accidentally appeared next to Fang Yuan, because I knew about Shen Yuchu's feelings for him. Shen Yuchu truly has excellent taste in people. Fang Yuan is a wonderful partner. I just couldn't understand why someone as proud as Shen Yuchu would marry a divorced man. The year I first met Shen Yuchu, her surname was Lin. Shen Yuchu was smart, gentle, and polite. She was only 1 year older than me, but she was the child of other people in the mouths of most parents in the area, including mine. Initially, my impression of Shen Yuchu was simply that of the girl next door. I didn't love her like the other kids did, but I didn't dislike her either. Until one day my father looked at me, dirty from a day of playing, and sighed, shaking his head. I still remember what he said clearly. "If only you could be as sensible as Yuchu." That was the first time I heard my strict, serious father praise someone, and that person wasn't me. An intense, negative emotion quietly took root without my knowledge. And it grew exponentially when my mother praised Shen Yuchu's excellent grades in front of me, and when my cousin told Shen Yuchu, "Sister Yuchu, you are so kind, even kinder than my cousin." The extreme emotion spread limitlessly. I began to watch Shen Yuchu's every move, trying to find traces of her private life. I discovered that her life was very simple. Besides studying, she raised flowers and cats. She liked to sit under the tree in the garden and read. That kind of quiet, well-behaved girl was, no wonder, deeply loved by the elders. I curbed my mischievous nature and consciously or unconsciously began to study Shen Yuchu, learning her temperament, even mimicking the way she dressed. I knew I was like a counterfeit, simultaneously hating this version of myself, yet unable to stop the imitation. This was because even my parents began to praise my changes. Until I was 16, Shen Yuchu was 17 that year. On the way home from school, Shen Yuchu was stopped in an alley. It was a humiliating bullying incident. Shen Yuchu was terrified, and her voice cracked as she cried for help. It was after evening study, and many students were passing by the alley entrance, but no one was willing to stop. I did stop, but I didn't dare to go help, until a tall, slender boy stopped at the alley entrance. He peered into the alley, and after seeing what was happening, he grabbed a wooden stick from the wall and rushed in without a second thought. 2 fists can't fight 4 hands. The boy who rushed in alone naturally didn't fare well. He was badly beaten, but successfully rescued Shen Yuchu. From the alley entrance, I heard his voice, distorted by pain, yet still threatening. "If I ever see you bullying him again, I'll kill you." The boy and Shen Yuchu supported each other as they walked out of the alley. I hid behind a tree. In that moment, because of my inaction, I suddenly felt I could never face Shen Yuchu again. Later, I saw a portrait of that boy in Shen Yuchu's art studio. It was a sketch, and the boy's name, Fang Yuan, was written on the edge of the drawing. Perhaps I knew Shen Yuchu better than she knew herself, because I guessed Shen Yuchu's secret thoughts just from that drawing. A girl always has a hero complex. The boy who stood up for her that night was undoubtedly a hero in Shen Yuchu's eyes. But Shen Yuchu didn't deliberately try to get close to Fang Yuan. She only occasionally offered a bottle of mineral water to the sweaty Fang Yuan after his basketball games. Fang Yuan took the water from Shen Yuchu and thanked her with a smile. The 16 or 17-year-old boy had a handsome face and clear eyes that looked right through you, but the way he looked at Shen Yuchu was one of unfamiliarity. He didn't know Shen Yuchu, the girl he had rescued that night. After Fang Yuan left, Shen Yuchu stared at his retreating figure for a while. Her eyes blinked twice quickly, and the corner of her mouth turned up slightly. It was the first time I had ever seen Shen Yuchu interested in a boy. If I stole the person Shen Yuchu liked, the despicable emotion would surge uncontrollably from my heart, getting completely out of hand. Being with Fang Yuan went more smoothly than I had imagined. During that time, I saw Shen Yuchu's disappointed eyes more than once. But Shen Yuchu was Shen Yuchu. Her immense pride prevented her from snatching someone away from another person. This only strengthened my determination to be with Fang Yuan. Finally, in the year Shen Yuchu turned 18, her mother, who had a strong personality, couldn't tolerate the situation, but her good upbringing prevented her from shouting curses in the street. Shen's mother took Shen Yuchu and left the Shen family. I no longer had to live under her shadow. For some reason, I didn't break up with Fang Yuan. He was a very good person, with a good personality, and much more interesting than I had expected. He was the first boy I had ever been close to in my 17 or 18 years of life. I could no longer distinguish if my feelings for him were genuine or just stemmed from that initial challenge I had to win. Almost inevitably, we got our marriage certificate after graduation. The day before I planned to go back, Jiboda and my cousin suddenly came looking for me. They didn't find me. They logically found Fang Yuan. My cousin was used to shouting at Fang Yuan. When I arrived, she was verbally abusing him. Fang Yuan's expression was unchanged. He glanced indifferently at my cousin and Jiboda and mocked, "Your house dog leash is too loose. Why is it barking randomly outside someone else's door?" My cousin's face was extremely ugly. Before she could speak, Fang Yuan suddenly laughed. He looked at Jiboda. "So you were the gigolo from back then?" Jiboda's face turned ashen. Fang Yuan finally seemed to notice me standing behind them. He sighed, as if arguing with them was utterly meaningless. He said to Jiboda, "This is karma." Jiboda had his back to me, so I couldn't see his expression, but I could see the bulging veins on the back of his hand. He was in the wrong concerning Fang Yuan, so no matter what Fang Yuan said, he was powerless to refute it. Finally, Fang Yuan waved his hand, giving them the order to leave. "Bye, Ning Bing. Take them away. I don't want to see any of you ever again." With that, he took Shen Yuchu's hand and left. I watched their backs grow distant. My heart was unbearably sore. Jiboda walked toward me, his face grim. He probably wanted to vent the frustration he felt from Fang Yuan onto me. "Are you still reluctant to leave?" I glanced at him, remembering his deliberate appearance during my marriage with Fang Yuan, and my own base desire to steal the one Shen Yuchu wanted. He probably confessed to Shen Yuchu. I turned and walked away. For that initial challenge, I lost the boy who walked through my entire youth with me. In the end, I lost the Shen Yuchu in this lifetime, and now I've lost the person who loved me most in the world forever.